What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me today. This is a SubaruONLY podcast. I'm Luke, your host, and I'm here with my co-host,
Jimmy. I'm a Subaru person, just like Luke. And as you can tell from the name of this podcast, we are probably only going to talk about Subarus and never talk about an Alfa Romeo. So if you're an Italian person, you might want to click off. Unless you are very interested in Subarus, and stick around because we're going to be talking about technical Subaru stuff and talking to people in the industry, aftermarket, and potentially in the OEM. Do we know anybody from Subaru yet?
I don't think we do, but that is going to be on our hit list for sure.
Definitely on the hit list. So if you're listening to this and you're from Subaru, please send us an email because we would like to talk to you about almost anything. Because, well, this is called the Subaru Only Show podcast, and we like your product.
And that's absolutely true. We are going to be talking about parts. We're going to be talking about upgrades. We're going to be talking about common failure points. And like Jimmy said, we're going to be interviewing some people in the industry. So what's the topic for today, Jimmy?
So today, I don't know if we've all had this problem. If we have a Subaru, you probably will. If you race it, I promise you will. And if you already haven't had to deal with this before, I pray that you never have to. But my oil pickup failed one time, and it made me cry because the whole motor blew up. I don't know how it failed. I don't know how it failed. At the time, I didn't know how it failed. All I knew is that there wasn't oil anymore going through anything because stuff just started seizing. And then, but there was still oil in the car. So that was kind of a head turner. Looked at the oil pump. It wasn't frozen. Got a new one. Taking all the motor out, obviously, for all of this. And then when I took out the oil pan, took it off, I noticed that the pickup was broken and not attached to anything. So today, Luke, do you want to talk about some oil pickups? Because I want to talk about some oil pickups.
I like that idea. So for those of us who are unfamiliar with oil pickups, obviously they lead to total engine catastrophe and engine failure and crying and potentially loud noises and lots of parts in your oil pan. But let's step back here for a second. What exactly is the oil pickup, Jimmy?
So oil pickups, the essential function of the oil pickup is that it's a tube, and I'm going to break this down super, like for me, this needs to be explained to me almost like a 5-year-old. Oil pickup sucks oil from the pan into the motor to get distributed and cool everything down. All right, that's the essential function. There's science, there's physics, there's things other behind that, but it's essentially a straw that's in the oil pan, and it sucks things up.
Okay, gotcha. So all the oil collects at the bottom of the pan. It's like a big bowl of oil, and the oil pickup is submerged in that bowl of oil, and it's like a straw. It's got a strainer on it, like a little mesh screen on it, so it doesn't pick up chunks if there's chunks in there, and it just sucks that stuff up into the oil pump and then pumps it through the engine and uses that oil as lubrication for all the bearing journal surfaces.
Right. There you go. Boom.
I like it. Okay, so they fail. That's what the problem is. You basically had one that it completely failed on you. And what's the deal with these things failing? Where do they fail, and how do they fail, and why do they fail?
Why? Where? Mine failed at one of the joints, at one of the brazed joints. So the Subaru ones from the factory all are brazed with, I guess, brass because it's brazed. And it kind of only has one tiny little arm for a brace, and I don't even think that was actually the intended purpose, just off of how thin everything is. I'm assuming they made the oil pan. They were like, hey man, we got to make some really cool stuff over here, but we might need to cut back in certain spots. And then Jenkins went and decided to go get the Campbell's soup can and then just kind of made an oil pickup out of that. And then, after a lot of driving in, especially like with what I do, because, racing Subarus, there's a lot of vibrations. There's a lot of back and forth kind of driving. And I think that a vibration eventually cracked through the braze, and then it just dropped into the pan. So that's a common thing with most people. Another common failure for these things is that people that are doing like track days and stuff, they'll, a lot of cornering, whole lot of cornering, especially if you're like at, I don't know, the streets of Willow Springs in Southern California. Lots of cornering. it'll just not suck up oil anymore because it doesn't see anything. Then you get air pockets and then death of a motor.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically the braze breaks due to like vibration, and there's a little crack in it, and that crack is basically like a hole in your straw trying to suck up something fluid, and you get a bunch of air in there. So obviously that's not solid like column of oil, and you start pumping like little bubbles of air through your oil system and into all of your journal bearings, and that stuff doesn't work with bubbles of air in it. It needs to have solid layer of oil in there.
Think of it like coolant. If you've got air in the coolant system, it's not gonna cool.
Yeah, totally.
That's
And
exactly the problem with that. So there's I don't know, there's on the market here now, because again, we've all experienced this, and if we haven't, we will. There's people that decided to capitalize on this this Campbell soup can oil pickup and decided to make some cooler ones. One of which I have on the way right now.
awesome. Which one you got on the way right now?
The Killer Bee, because I
Okay,
ain't screwing around.
nice.
This is never
I'd say that's
happening
probably
ever
one of
again.
the nicer ones in the market, but let's start at one of the more budget friendly and work our way up. So I think recently Roger Clark Motorsport introduced kind of an adapter for oil pickups as a solution to this problem. Is that correct?
Yeah, so RCM has basically what it's an adapter for the OEM brazed pickup, and the main feature of this thing is that the bottom, how do you, where the filter is for the oil pickup, it has this little rubber polyurethane. I don't know the exact material, but it looks like a rubber I don't know, boot that goes over top of the pickup or the filter. And what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to press onto the oil pan, right? And it's kind of slotted so oil can still pass through this rubber boot. And it's supposed to act, when it's pressed up against the oil pan, it's supposed to act as like your security, because it's not supposed to be moving now because you have a load on it, and oil can still pass through and get sucked up, is the general I guess idea over this thing.
Okay, this makes sense actually, because oil pickup basically by itself is just hanging down that oil pan, and even though it's got like one arm bolted to the block, and it's got, and the tube itself bolts up into the block, it's actually like 4 or 5 inch like little apparatus is sticking down into this like pool of oil by itself, and it doesn't have any support at the tip of it. So all the harmonics of the engine and all the vibrations from the engine, or if you have like a sharp impact from hitting a surface or hitting a curb while you're racing, gets transmitted down to that oil pickup. And it's like cracking the whip. Like the way harmonics work is like the very tip of that like point where all the vibration goes. If it's not supported, it's going to take all that load at the tip. And so this thing, this adapter that Roger Clark Motorsport or RCM has out there, it basically is like you said, it's a little boot that slips over the bottom of that oil pickup and then actually makes contact with the bottom of the oil pan on the inside, basically the inside bottom surface of the oil pan, and actually supports that pickup using the oil pan as like a third like arm to support the whole thing. So it's not going to be transmitting that like, you know, frequency and those shock loads to the tip of that pickup. It's actually going to, you know, transmit all the way down to the pan and get redistributed through the bottom of the block again.
Right. So, but the thing that I find, I don't know, I'm not a big believer in anymore of the OEM pickups. So even though you've got this bracing, I still feel like if you have any sort of harsh impacts that the pickup might feel, I don't think that it's going to be exactly secure as they think. I don't have any science behind that, or I don't have any real life examples. This is all me just guessing off of the looks of it, but I like the theory. I just don't think it's going to be as good, especially because the pickup is still a brazed pickup and it's still the Campbell soup can thickness tube.
No, that's an interesting point actually, because you're right that whatever material it is, if it's like a rubber or a neoprene or some kind of like composite rubber material, that's still not going to be able to take a sudden shock very well. And you know, I mean, because any kind of rubber stuff has some kind of dampening to it. So if you have a sudden shock from an impact or from hitting a curb or something, I would think that that brazed weld could still fail a lot sooner than you would if you had something that was like a fully welded stainless steel unit, like some of the more expensive ones out there are.
Right. I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. I know people that are welders, and I've already asked this. I was like, hey, what's stronger, like a TIG, like a TIG weld or brazed? And they're like, I mean, either one's still going to hold, which isn't really an answer, but it's still going to hold. I don't know what that answer is, but I don't know. There's some people that are saying that brazing is just as good as TIG in the welding department, or the joint fusion department, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I know what brass is. I know I work with brass. It's not the sturdiest kind of material. You can put a thumb in it and it'll indent. So that doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the OEM pickups being just brazed right out of the gate.
Yeah, well, aside from even the different material and different welding process, the aftermarket ones out there that we're going to talk about in a second, they're actually use thicker material too. The
Right.
the tube itself and actually the support brackets and support arms are much thicker material than OEM. So it's not even it's not the weld alone; it's the material too.
Right. Yeah. No, the material definitely, that Campbell soup can definitely, the tin. I don't know if it's actually tin, just tin, just straight disclaimer.
No, I think we should. I think
But
we should. I think we should. We should. What's the term for it? The Campbell soup can pickup. I think we need to
I mean, is that a patent? Do we patent that already?
patent that.
Episode one, we've already
What's the word for patenting a word? It's not coin that
copyright.
phrase. That's the word I'm looking for. I think
Coin
we
the
need to
phrase.
coin
Yeah,
that
we'll do
phrase.
that. If you hear anybody saying the Campbell soup pickup, that's it's the OEM, and you heard it here first, the SubaruONLY podcast. Anyway, yeah.
You
So all
know,
the other ones
well,
have.
actually, before we move on to the other ones, there's actually one more interesting aspect about this RCM pickup adapter thing.
Okay, tell me. I'm waiting because I have no real hopes on this thing, other
Well,
than the price. The
I'm
price
actually
is
pretty much a
a
big
cool
fan.
thing.
I don't know if I would replace it on a high horsepower car that was going to be track duty or rallycross duty because a lot of sharp impacts and sharp loads. But for an everyday driver that had some aftermarket power on it, and I wasn't going crazy on the track or the rallycross events, I might actually consider this. Here's the second thing I was thinking about, and it's the second failure point that you talked about that has to do with these pickups. So when you go around turns and you're hitting a lot of G's, probably well over a G, that oil that's in the bottom of this pan, it's like basically a bowl of oil. All that oil like slides up against the side, just like if you're on like some kind of like amusement ride where you're spinning in a circle and all the G's are on the outside, or it's a centrifugal force.
Right.
And when all that oil is on the side of the pan, the stock pickup can not be submerged in oil completely and then suck up some air, and then you're going to have a major problem. I would think that with this adapter that slips over, this RCM adapter that slips over our oil pickup, it actually extends the point at where the pickup sucks up oil to a lower point. And in addition to extending that point, because it's like a boot that slips over and it sucks from a lower point in the oil pan, it's actually slotted with 4 channels that will pull oil from those 4 slots because it's got the support legs that kind of come down and touch with the bottom of the oil pan. And through those slots, it's pulling that oil. And when you pull oil through slots like that, instead of like the entire lower area underneath an oil filter, instead of underneath the entire oil filter area, you're actually pulling oil in a much more effective way that will keep a better pressure signal for pulling that oil up into that tube and into your engine.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That's just my theory, but I think it might actually help a little bit there too.
You're probably right. I don't know. I just off of the straight looks of it, I'm not entirely impressed, but it could be absolutely amazing, and I'm just harping on it for nothing.
I think it's a huge improvement over the stock thing. And for the cost, I mean, that's something that's got to be considered. So actually, let's jump over to the cost. And I think we got costs for all these things. So we started this one because it's the most economic option. How much is this sucker going for on the market right now, retail?
So, okay, no, hold on. I don't know if you buy the whole thing, the pickup and the adapter. I think you might be able to buy just the adapter. But if you buy the pickup and the adapter, I think it's on RCM's website. It's $66, which is pretty good compared to, say, the Killer Bee one, which is $180.
So like 3 times as much.
Yeah, it's kind of way more expensive. But again, I don't know if we're putting some snake oil on a problem. I don't know. I kind of want to buy one just because, just to see. But
I hear you. I kind of want to hold it too.
Yeah.
Just take a closer
So
look.
people that are listening to this and they're like, what are you talking about when we're saying the boot and it's got slots? Imagine and then we'll move on to the next one. Imagine this boot looks like a castle nut. If you know what a castle nut is, it looks like like a little rubber castle nut, and the castle part that's not slotted touches the oil pan for a visual. Hopefully, if you're driving, don't look this up. Get off your phone. I know you're on your phone right now. Get off. You're loud. You're not driving a Tesla.
No,
Look
it
it up.
is. It's actually a physical, like round, like little boot apparatus that slips over the bottom of that oil pickup, and then has like four little feet in the bottom with four slots that's like touched with the oil pan and let oil slide through those slots.
Yeah. So
That made
next
sense.
one, the next one here, which is a little bit more expensive. We're going progressively more and more expensive. If you wanted the OEM one that just broke on you, you can find it for probably like $30 ish, depending on if you got it from the dealership or from like Rally Sport Direct or somewhere. So the next one, a little bit more expensive than the RCM one, is and I'm going to screw this up, Moroso. Is that it?
I think it's Moroso. Yep.
The Moroso pickup, which if you're holding or looking at the OEM pickup now, just imagine the exact looking thing, but it's thicker stainless steel. That's it. And it's TIG welded.
And so I actually have one of these, and it's also a little bit different shape. It's actually more of like a S-shaped tube, like a smooth flowing S-shaped tube. Then it's like then the same angle that the tube, like than the OEM tube. So it looks like a little bit different angle, but you're right. It's stainless steel. It's a lot thicker. It's TIG welded, machine TIG welded, and
It also has a better looking filter pickup on it. The actual part that picks up the oil, that looks a lot more impressive compared to most of them.
yeah, it's got a welded. The little screen is welded in there too. So
Right.
it's got a
So
welded in screen, all stainless steel. It's very strong. It looks like it's definitely not going to fail. But like when I look at it, I actually have a background in fluid mechanics. I have a graduate degree in that. And when I look at that Moroso one compared to the Killer B one, which we'll talk next, I actually think that the Killer B one will apply a better negative pressure signal, which basically means it's going to pull oil up more effectively at a more consistent, like volumetric rate. But that's just my opinion. It's because of the way that the bends in that tube are
I'm
positioned.
gonna have to believe you because I don't know anything about fluid mechanics or physics and any of that. This is all every time I look at one of these things, this is mainly just like the simple man looking at it and going, "Yeah, it looks heavy duty. That doesn't look like that's gonna fail." It's mainly my concern. It's like I don't want it swimming in the bottom of my oil pan. This is the main concern. Which that Moroso one, I don't have one to hold, but off of just pictures and off of what you just said, I mean that thing doesn't look like it's gonna come off anytime soon. Definitely see it still having some of the vibration problems, but the tubing is way thicker. I mean, if the OEM one had just a little bit thicker of tubing, I don't think we would have such a problem.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll say actually that Moroso one I have on my 2004 Forester XT, and I've been rallycrossing that thing, and I've hit quite a few big bumps in that thing, and I definitely have not had any problems. So so far it's been performing well for about the last 6 to 8 months with hard use for me.
And that's all you can ask for. I
Yep.
mean, especially imagine if you're even doing that and you're like not doing that. You just wanted good added security. That is probably, other than maybe the RCM. Again, I don't know. I need to get proven on that one. But the Moroso one, definitely the economic end all be all of that problem. You probably pick that up and you never have to think about that issue ever again.
Yep, and that's what my logic was. I mean, when I was looking at my options, it was either the Moroso or the Killer B. And we're going to talk about the price difference because they are pretty substantial price difference between the two. And at the end of the day, I realized, look, I'm going to replace my stock oil pickup because I'm afraid that one day it could break and ruin my engine. If this Moroso one solves that problem, then what am I doing thinking about anything that's more expensive?
Yep.
That's the base logic, applied there for that decision.
You don't need to go in. I don't even know if that's a real story, but there's a story that I've always heard, kind of just with interest in science and like NASA and spaceship stuff like that. as kids are. That NASA apparently, back when there was a big space program, people were up in space. Then NASA went and spent I don't know what the number is, but somewhere in the ballpark of like $250,000 developing a pen that can write in space. Because if you have a ballpoint pen and there's no gravity, there's no writing. Like you can't transfer apparently because you're in space. Spent $250,000 somewhere in that range developing a pen that can write in space. So this thing can transfer ink from pen to paper. You know what the Russians did? They just brought a pencil. It did the same job. And it worked. The Moroso one is the pencil. It'll work, and it'll work a lot better than spending the whole bunch more money on the super fancy one that I did, because I totally bought this pickup.
Well, I actually bought the Killer B one as well. I have that on my next build, which is this my 1998 two-door coupe I'm doing the r-sti swap in. But we'll save that for another conversation. So let's talk about the price points on these. We didn't talk about that for the Moroso yet.
So
what's the
Moroso one? I found that one for the EJ25 or the EJ20, because that's I think that does bolt up the same. They found that on Rally Sport Direct for $90.
Nice.
$90.28 US. So way cheaper than the Killer B, a little bit more expensive than the RCM, but I think for the extra $30, you'll sleep a little bit easier knowing that when you start the car in the morning, it won't immediately seize itself.
Nice.
Definitely feel like that's, I mean, you know how you don't go and, I don't know, maybe this is just me. I don't waste money. Like no expense is ever spared on toilet paper. You gotta always pick up the Charmin Ultra, the 3-ply. You gotta just, it's gotta feel nice, right? Like you don't pick up the hotel paper because it's a little cheaper. Just do yourself the luxury, at bare minimum. I think Moroso, bare minimum, not the OEM, maybe RCM, Moroso, bare minimum. That's my opinion on that.
Well, for $90, you probably you're basically eliminating that crack problem.
I mean, yeah. I would never have to. I would sleep a little easier. Personally, would sleep a little easier if I had that in the motor versus the one that dropped and took a dip. I'm not going to get over that anytime soon.
No, it's going to be a hard one.
I'm still feeling that. I'm still feeling that in my pocket. But
anyway, so what do we got next?
The next one here is we got the Killer B, the fabled Killer B, the ultimate oil pickup, which is a little cocky, might I say, to call it the ultimate oil pickup. But I think I know why. Because this shit is just the sturdiest, most heavy-duty thing on the market, I think, in terms of it won't move. This thing comes with, it's the oil tube, the oil pickup tube, and it's got a slight little kind of S bend in it, but it's got, get this, not one, not three, but 2 brackets to bolt to the bottom of the block. And this thing doesn't look like it's ever going to move. It's got basically 3 connecting points, the tube, and then these 2 brackets. And then it's got fully TIG welded little housing thing for a filter. And it's never going to move ever again. This is essentially the concrete in the sidewalk. That's not a good example. That cracks. That's the, okay. Anyway, this thing, good oil pickup. It's never going to move. It's never going to leave you. It's not going to be like your ex-girlfriend that says, yeah, we're going to be good, but then she leaves like 2 months later. This is going to stay forever.
So it's got a completely different design. It's got a whole separate bracket. So it's got 2 brackets that bolt to the engine in addition to the tube location that bolts up to the engine. So it's 3 points of contact, which makes it way more rigid. Way more rigid.
And the material just all the way around is way, way more thick. It's got, I think it's 3 times, it says here on the description of it, 3 times thickness for the OEM pickup tube. And then it's got a 12 thousandths thick double bracket for the bracing. Dude, all of your oil pickup problems just solved right here. Nice. In my mind.
I also noticed they have an interesting design. Do you know what the deal is with that design? I think I know what it is.
Tell me, what's the reasoning?
If I recall correctly, I think I either read this on their site or maybe I heard one of the guys talking about it. But the reason they have that, like, Okay, so basically the OEM pickup has a flat round shape that's drawing in oil through that screen. And the Moroso one has a rectangular shape that's flat, that's drawing up oil through its screen. And this one is different than both of those. This one actually has like a pyramid shape to it, or a triangular shape.
Yeah, it looks like a little Snoopy house with a hole in it.
Exactly, like a little Snoopy house. And what I heard is the reason you do that is because if the oil pan gets crushed from hitting something in a stage rally event, and you go over a big jump or anything, or you hit a curb or you hit anything, and it crushes the oil pan, it pushes that oil pan up into the oil pickup. If you have that Snoopy house, it's actually an inverted Snoopy house shape, right? Where it's a point at the bottom.
Right.
That actually makes it so even if the oil pan gets crushed up against the pickup, you'll still be able to suck oil from the sides, from that angle, from those 45-degree angle sides.
Huh. That's genius.
Genius, right?
I never even thought. I'm staring at it right now. I never even thought about that. I just kind of thought that was supposed to be a little bit more unique. Like they were like, yeah, we're gonna do some different shit here, and then did that. But that's genius. I mean, they literally thought of everything. This is
they thought about it. They designed it into it. You know,
it's all in the name.
The ultimate pickup. I think they also have the ultimate pan and the ultimate headers, or everything they make is a little bit of a bold statement, but they back it up, to be honest. So I kind of am a big fan, frankly.
Let me see. Do we have the ultimate pan? Is that actually a thing? Do we have that?
I think everything is the ultimate, isn't it?
There's the high performance oil.
It's the holy header. The holy header.
The holy.
Isn't it?
I absolutely love Killer Bee.
They're awesome. They're one of the best aftermarket manufacturers for Subarus on the market.
Yeah, the holy header. Yes, the holy header. Yeah. That's a conversation for a different thing, but I'm not a big fan of the equal length headers. I think that's a big no-no, but I do know that it provides a hell of a lot more power for our cars.
It does maximize the potential of power that an engine can make. You're literally sacrificing power to have the Subi rumble.
Yeah, and I will every single time.
And I'll continue to do so if I need to. Yeah.
I got told with my white car that my WRX, so that in quotes, that has all of the STI stuff. They told me at Yemi, they said, hey, you would pick up like an extra 20, 25 horsepower if you had an equal length header. And I went, yeah, I'll sacrifice that. I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't buy this to sound like an Evo or a Honda. I bought this to sound like how it sounds. I want old men at the gas station when I pull up to look at me and go, you know what? I got to help this kid out. He's just some dumb fucking kid. Hey, son, you know that car's misfiring. And then you just look at him and go, what are you talking about? It ran perfectly fine and just outran a Camaro. If it's misfiring, I want to know what it feels like normally.
Love it.
That was a real conversation.
Those are the best conversations.
Yeah, No, I'm saying I literally had that at a Chevron.
Nice.
I had this old guy in a Buick Rendezvous, I think is what they call it. I think it was a Rendezvous. It was like an SUV looking thing, and he was like, "Hey, your car's not running right." And I was like, "Yeah, it's running pretty good." And he was like, "No, I'm a mechanic. I've been a mechanic for a long time." And I'm like, "All right, trust me. I don't want to sound mean, but like it's running really, really good right now. Just please cross your fingers and hope it stays that way, because this thing is finicky."
And then how many weeks later did it blow up on you?
You know what? It was about a year and a half. Okay. It's okay. It was about a year and a half later that I decided to lift a head with setting a stud. RIP, the ARPs. Anyway.
Making about north of 500 probably.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark range. So, yeah, I got what are those? ARP 620s? 625s? The custom aged?
I don't call off the top of my head. Let's pull it up for another discussion.
But yeah, anyways, that's a different podcast, which should be soon because I've got a lot of knowledge on these head studs after looking at shopping a whole lot. But yeah, so the Killer Bee Ultimate Pickup is the ultimate pickup. I've got one coming. It's $180, so it's a little steep. It's I think every penny worth it, just so you never have to even have a thought about this ever again. It comes with, like an new oil. All of them come with new oil ring or O-rings and things like that. But if you have an extra $180 that you were like, I'm going to upgrade my car a little bit with, please, for the love of God, get this. Oh my God. I don't have enough good things to say about this thing. I've seen them. I've experienced them. I didn't know about the whole oil pan smashing thing, but I mean, you just made me fall in love even more. Like that wasn't anything that made me think anything bad about it, because that's genius. They literally. All right. I'm just gonna shut up, Luke. Tell me some things. Tell me some more things.
Okay, here's what I'm thinking. No, I think that's all you know about the Killer Bee pickup, but I'm a huge fan. I got it on my, like I said, I got it on my r-sti, and that's the car I'm going to be pushing high numbers with, and it's an oil pickup I'm going to be relying on. But, now that we've worked our way through these 3 oil pickups, right, we talked about the Roger Clark Motorsport one, we talked about the Moroso, and we talked about the Killer Bee one. It came to my mind that, if somebody would just actually merge the best of all 3 of these things, right, or the top couple things, and what I mean by that is you could actually make an adapter for the Killer Bee one so that you have a third or a fourth, in that case, actually a fourth point of contact where you're supporting it to the bottom of the pan. Or you could actually make like an OEM design one that's made out of thicker material with stainless steel, and then it also has that Roger Clark Motorsport adapter to it. It would be kind of cool to have something that's actually the combination of all of them, because that would still be even better to have even more support.
Now, how much support turns into overkill, though?
I don't know. It wouldn't hurt to have that adapter on the Killer Bee one underneath it, I don't think, touching the bottom of the pan if you had channels to flow the oil to just fine.
I guess you're right. I guess there's no such thing as too much support when it comes to these things, but
This makes it all more rigid. I mean,
I'm
yeah.
just like now absolutely in love with the idea between the Snoopy House thing.
Well, it is basically the ultimate pickup, and it probably is not necessary to go any further than that. I mean, if there's people making 1,000 horsepower with a Killer Bee pickup, and they're road racing it, they're rally racing it, they're rally stage racing it, they're rally crossing it. I mean, do we need to have anything any more robust than that? Probably
I mean,
not.
unless we're in a demolition derby and for some reason we're getting rammed in the bottom. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's probably a solution for the most extreme case you'll ever need.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of us that are actually doing stage rally, but there's probably a lot of us that got this car initially and went, I watched this on ESPN. There's a dude named Colin that ran this thing down this fire road that's behind my house and then hit a boulder. Not me. That was not a real experience. I made all that up.
But they don't actually solve every problem. Now, I'm kind of overstating them right now, because there is situations where they are going to prevent cracking, and they will prevent any kind of failure of the pickup, but they're not going to prevent the lateral G's from having that oil slosh up to the side of the oil pan and cause you to suck up air, right?
Yeah, that definitely is the fatal flaw for all of these, the OEM to the Killer Bee. If you're doing a long sweeping left-hand turn, all of the oil is gonna just be pressed right up against the oil pan on the what is that? If you're turning left, it'd be on the right-hand side. Yeah. And then there's air pockets and then all of that other bad stuff. Then yeah. So Luke, what's the solution on that one?
Well, actually, there is a solution. Before we even jump into the solution is the dry sump design. And that's basically where you get rid of having a bowl of oil at the bottom of your crankcase area, and you actually draw the oil into a pump underneath everything, and you positively pull the oil out from the engine and pump it back up into the engine. And that's a dry sump design. But before we jump into the dry sump design, we actually should touch on the fact that there's a couple different oil pan designs out there. And if we're going to talk about lateral G's causing that oil volume to, hug the side of an oil pan instead of sit level at the bottom of the oil pan, we should talk about these couple different oil pan designs that are out there, because Subaru actually upgraded their oil pan design in 2006, I believe. So the 2006 and on oil pans have a much different design than the earlier oil pans that are from the early 2000s. And the early 2000 oil pans are much wider, or like basically a much wider oil pan design that has a lot more volume at the kind of volume, not more, the volume of oil is spread out in a wider area. And the 2006 and later oil pan design is kind of a narrower little bowl where the oil pickup sits in.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
I'm trying, because I don't know too much about the oil pan differences here. I'm trying to look up real quick so I can see like the different years for like how they got wider. I'm finding a lot of different oil pans. There's a lot of aftermarket oil pans. Definitely seeing that.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, so basically what had happened was I think Subaru started realizing their oil pan had a little bit too much room at the bottom area, at the lowest point of the oil pan where the pickup is. So basically, where there was a pickup and then oil pan, the area in the oil pan was maybe like 5 or 10 times the area of the pickup, and they realized that was too much area. So they actually made a deeper pan, but narrowed the width of that area where the pickup is sitting in, so that the pan is a much narrower design around where the pickup is, so the oil can't slosh over to the side as easily. And they actually
Gotcha.
made it deeper too at the same time, so the pan actually holds more oil too.
So it holds more oil. You're in a more narrow channel, so it can't really escape as easy. And
Yep.
if you're able to keep enough oil in the car to begin with, it at most angles should be able to pick up oil without having any gaps in the suckage. Is that, I don't know if that's a word term.
I think that works. Suckage. I mean, essentially, you should be able to hit a much further G threshold before that oil, moves to the side so far up in that pan where you're not able to suck solid, column of oil through the pickup.
Right. So I see that there's some aftermarket ones, and I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that.
Yes, there is. Moroso's got one. It's welded. I'm not sure if they put a whole lot of thought into design. Is
It
at least
definitely
compared
looks
to the
like
Killer B one.
the Moroso one definitely looks like they kind of just found some like aluminum in the back, and then we're like, "Yo, we got a lot of rod for this. Let's do some TIGging," and then
Yeah,
kind of just threw this one together.
that's what it
But
looks
I
like to
do
me
see
too.
that there's baffles and stuff. There's a lot of baffles in it, so I don't know. There probably is a lot of engineering in that, but I'm not sure what it is because I'm not an engineer.
Well, Moroso has been around for a long time. They cut their teeth in the domestic market with all the big American hot rods and drag racing and road racing stuff. So they've been around for a long time, and I have a feeling they're pretty smart guys. But they're also a bigger, older company, and they're not as specialized as Killer B. And Killer B has an oil pan out there, and I suspect that they probably put a little bit more thought into that design.
Yeah, so the Killer Bee one has it looks a little bit more formed for the aluminum. It almost looks like a cast aluminum, which I don't know, to me is already stronger. If you need strength with an oil pan, the cast I'm assuming is a lot better than a fully like a TIG welded one, because if you're welding, that's weak points to just start with. But if it's cast, it's all one piece. And this has turbo like oil. What is this? Turbo oil pickup things that are at the very bottom. I don't know exactly what that is. There's an oil like pan, like plug, but there's another threaded bit in there that I'm not entirely sure what's up with that. But there's some baffling in it. Not as much as the Moroso one, but it's a lot more open and I don't want to say flimsy, but there's probably a lot of thought behind this, and it's probably minimalistic purely on weight, like saving weight on this.
Interesting. So I'd like to get my hands on all these oil pans and actually do a video for my SubaruONLY YouTube channel. I actually have the two OEM oil pans here in my shop, and I'm actually planning to do a video on those two designs. But I'd like to actually get the Moroso and the Killer B one. That would be a great video to do the pre 2006 Subaru design that they use in the WRXs and the STIs, the 2006 and later STI and WRX design, and then the Moroso and the Killer B, and have all four of them on my workshop bench and do a full-on video on those. That would be awesome.
Well, what you're going to find is that the Moroso one is essentially the same size as the OEM one. Um, the Killer B holds 1.4 quarts of oil extra, which is 30% more.
That's a lot.
That is a whole lot.
That's going to help you with cooling too, because a lot of volume of oil has a tremendous effect on the cooling.
Yeah,
Its
it's less
capacity
time
to take
for it
heat.
to go back into where it's heated. It's got a, what is it, like a, what am I trying to say, Luke? There's more of it, so there's a better rest period per se for the oil before it has to go and see heat.
Yeah, it's got
Yeah, that was the
more.
idiot's way of saying that.
It's got basically more heat capacity because of the volume, or it's got a bigger buffer for raising to a certain threshold.
Right. Oh, okay. So, important note if you're thinking about this, which $513 on Rally Sport Direct, looking at it right now. If you have apparently NVIDIA headers might not fit it, but it also could. So that's a key little thing.
Ambiguous bit of information there.
Yeah. So that's kind of a weird thing. But
Nice. And I should mention, we're not sponsored by Rally Sport Direct, but we would like to be.
yeah, hey, Rally Sport Direct, if you hear this, let
Rick,
us
Rick, hit me up.
hit us up. Send us an email, SubaruONLYpodcast@gmail.com. Anyway,
What was that email again?
SubaruONLYpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Awesome. That goes for Rally Sport Direct or any of the potential sponsors out there.
Or if anybody has questions and you don't know how to reach any of us, Luke is pretty easily accessible on most all social media. If you just take off the word podcast and just type in Subaru Only, you'll find him. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, definitely, I think both of us are pretty open to answering any of those questions. But
that's true. Oh yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
So anyway, what about this dry sump?
Tell me about dry sump design.
Because I don't even think we were even planning on talking about oil pans, but that's definitely a good thing to talk about. But I want to know how come, and you might be able to tell me this. Have some reasoning behind it. Oh, there's like 3 paragraphs I'm looking at right here on rallyspec.com for the RCM oil pump, the dry sump pump. Ooh. Why in the fuck?
Ooh. How much is it? Tell me. Start with a price tag.
Every single motherfucking dry sump system is over $3,000. This one specifically is $3,600. Why in the fuck?
They are so fucking expensive.
Is this the holy water? Is this the fucking end all be all of all oiling fucking problems? Is that why it's so much? Or am I gonna complain to Mark Yeager later about how, yeah, I got a dry sump and it still didn't fucking work when I went around turn fucking 2 at Big Willow?
Like, no, they weren't. They're what's on Indy cars and F1 cars. I mean, that's the shit right there. If you're gonna take your car to serious road racing, that's the way to go, and that's gonna save your fucking engine. But they are crazy expensive. I think it's basically the fact that they have multiple stages in them, that they have really high tolerance in their machine surfaces, and they're really high quality parts, and you have to have a really well designed and manufactured unit to apply to these like high-end racing programs they're used for.
I mean, the RCM one, this is a whole kit. It comes with kind of I don't even know how it's where your oil pan goes, but it eliminates the whole oil pan, and it's just, has the pump like you were talking about. It comes with a oil pump. It comes with some new gears and new bearings, and then like an oil pickup tube with some hardware.
Okay, incidentally, here's a good thing to bring up now that you mentioned this. So when you're looking at that oil pan that replaces your stock oil pan, does it look a hell of a lot flatter?
100% flatter.
And that creates a huge advantage. If you have a completely flat oil pan design, you can actually lower your engine to a lower point of your vehicle so that you can lower the center of gravity and actually maximize that lowest point of gravity for your vehicle. So if you're looking to build a full tube-fin car and you're not restricted by the front cross member or any kind of the geometry associated with that, you're building a full-on race car, you actually want to lower that engine to the absolute lowest point so that you have lowest center of gravity so you can get around turns the fastest. And to do that, you can actually drop that engine several inches by having a completely flat design like this for that dry sump.
I didn't actually think of that, but that's genius. You'd have a lower center of gravity, and then you can have corner easier.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big part of the fundamental design of the car using a dry sump design.
So it costs so much fucking money because of potential handling increases and machining.
Well, that's a good question. I feel like we need to get somebody on this podcast and have a little interview here and talk about the costs of these things. Maybe Roger Clark Motorsport, representative from them.
Hey, we already said the email, SubaruONLYpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
So yeah, I would really love to talk to somebody about these, because I mean, I'm all for paying it if it's the most awesome oiling solution on the planet, which it seems to be because it's highly regarded by literally everybody. But
it's next level.
But like, oh my God, fucking $3,600 fucking dollars.
It's more than buying a fully closed deck, basically. Right now, you can probably get a fully forged closed deck block, good for 700-800 horsepower, for around $3,000, right? No, not really.
35. I mean, it's in the
35
ballpark of the
maybe.
same thing, but I mean, if you're getting one of those, I'm assuming you're probably thinking about maybe about dry sump pump, and you're like, oh man, I just spent all that fucking money. Now, I don't know, maybe if you're fucking loaded, this isn't a problem to you, but I'm not exactly a budget racer, but I mean, if there was one level above budget, I'm there. So this $3,600 fucking dollars for an oiling system seems a little ridiculous to me. But again, like if this is one of those things where I can get this and then basically not ever have to think of it ever again, unless like an oil pump fails, which, products fail, things fail. Eventually that just happens. I'm a little bit more game for it. But if
Yep.
not, I'm definitely a lot more game for spending $180 on an oil pickup.
I think my conclusion here at the end of the day for this is that if you're not dabbling in the arena that requires something like this, i.e. doing some super lap shit, then you probably don't need to be messing around with one of these dry sump designs.
Yeah, you're probably right. Would this even be a good thing for like a street application? Like there's no way that this is a good thing for street application, right?
Well, no, there's nothing hurting it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it for a street application. It would just be complete overkill. But I mean, I'm the kind of guy who likes to have, I'm the kind of guy that wouldn't mind having a full on, 2-frame race car on the street.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, this is an overkill. It's not going to.
I guess there's no thing as too much protection on it, but I would love to drive one and see how it works, I guess you wouldn't feel exactly what an oiling system would do to a car in feel, but
You wouldn't feel anything. You wouldn't even know you had it on your car probably if you did it, if you use your car as a daily driver.
you're probably right. You're probably being a little dramatic about it. I just $3,600 fucking dollars. You'd assume there's some kind of a difference. Like you'd be able to feel it. Like, can we make it gold? Like plated, please, for the love of God. Like chrome.
It's some bling.
It's not even chrome. The pan's not chrome. It's just cast. It's a cast aluminum. Let's polish it or something, man. $3,600 fucking dollars. You know what? There's a fucking 15 Subarus on Craigslist right now, STIs that just need probably new blocks. I haven't looked into them that are cheaper than this fucking oil pump system.
Yeah.
Whole cars. I've bought 2 Miatas cheaper than this.
I'm pretty sure it's called. Yeah, that's more expensive than my 2004 Forester XT, than my r-sti coupe, than any of my cars.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
But complete overkill, and you might never have to think about it ever again.
So that's basically the furthest you can go as far as trying to solve this oil pickup problem, right? I mean, we've gone through 4 options here. We've gone over the Roger Clark Motorsport RCM, also known as RCM design, which is that little like boot that goes over it and makes contact with the bottom. Then we went over the Moroso one. Then we went over the Killer B one, and then you could go all the way up to a dry sump design.
Yeah, which there's a bunch of dry sump designs out there. The one that I picked up is the Roger Clark Motorsports one, and that is again $3,600 fucking dollars. But there's a lot of them that might only be 25. I don't know. You do a little bit more research on them, but they all have generally the same theory behind them. It's just some of the parts might be a little different here and there for that. But yeah. So I don't know. Is that the end of the day here? Personally, I've already bought it and I have it. The Killer B oil pickup, and I'm pretty happy with that. If you're a normal guy, I'm pretty sure that's going to make it might be a little overkill. If you're just dailying, the Moroso might be the best option. Or if you just have $66 and you're already there and you're like, I don't think I'm going to be doing any crazy shit. Maybe just pick up the Roger Clark and then let us know how that works out. Right?
Awesome. No, definitely. And the email, SubaruONLYpodcast@gmail.com. So before we wrap it up here, let's give these guys another little summary of what we'll be talking about. I got a list pulled up here of some of the episodes that we're playing around with.
Ooh, yes.
So we're looking at doing one on head gasket failures. That's definitely a good that's definitely a good subject to discuss.
Ooh, yes, the fabled head gaskets.
And then we got the STI versus Evo discussion.
Oh,
Should we
that's
dive
gonna
into
be
that?
should we even talk about that, or like
I
the
think we
Evos
should. I
aren't
got a
gonna
theory
be
on
there?
that one that'll put some of those Evo guys to sleep.
I'm gonna have to, I can. We'll talk to some people. Maybe we can get a back and forth going here with some other Evo people.
Nice. And then I got one here on ringland failures. That's going to have a
Ah,
lot to do with your map and your timing and having pre-ignition.
computers. That's gonna be an in-depth one. Let me tell you, because I don't even think that's not a problem that a lot of other cars have, right? Like every time I talk to anybody about ringland failure, people are like, "Oh, I don't know what that is. I think that's just a Subaru problem."
Yeah,
So that might be just an R problem. So if you have problems with that, we're in the future. We're talking about it, and you're gonna know everything about it after that podcast.
I love it. Awesome.
Pretty close to everything.
All right. So, and then we're going to do some interviews, right? So we'll circle back to doing some interviews. What do we got here? We got some people, some contacts we've already set up for some interviews, some people in the industry. I got a friend who's a rallycross, or actually a stage rally instructor over in the UK. He wants to do an interview with us, so stay tuned for that.
And
Jimmy, set up.
we got some people from McLeod Clutches. McLeod Clutches is highly into NHRA drag racing and in drag racing in general. I think they do a lot of drifting stuff now, but if you want high quality clutches, we're going to be talking to the people that make them, especially because they're dabbling into the Subarus. And I've got McLeod clutches on all of my cars.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to these people. I want to know about like how they got into the industry, what motivated them, how they got started, what's the story, how long they've been around, and what's been the journey from the day they opened their doors from day one till today, and where they think the company's going to go in the future. I think these would be all really interesting things to talk about with these guys.
And I'm looking forward to it. I hope all of you guys are too, because we're really excited. We're really, really excited to start talking about a lot of this stuff, especially because, like, I don't know, people like me, I'm not the most intelligent with a lot of this stuff. I drive cars mostly. I don't really try to fix them, though, because, you have to fix them if you're racing them. Learning a lot of this stuff, I am learning a whole lot off of these, just on research.
Same here. It's a never-ending learning process, actually. I mean, I've been racing these suckers for like 20 years, and I've been heavily into the Subarus for about a decade now. And I'm telling you, every year that goes by, I'm still learning a shit ton more. And there's no shortage of different motorsport events you can get involved in, from drag racing to rallycross racing to time trial racing to road racing and autocross racing. There's so many different motorsport forms you can get involved in. And the Subaru platform I found, because I've gone from domestic cars to European cars, specifically German cars, over to the Japanese makes, and then I've landed with Subarus. And I've actually competed in motorsports with a lot of these different makes. And I'm telling you, I think Subaru is definitely one of the best platforms honestly, for motorsports, but also even just as daily drivers and cars with character. So I'm excited. I'm all in, man.
I mean, that's the hands down the best reason why, like, people like my dad absolutely loves Alfa Romeos because of character. I like Subarus because of character, and it doesn't break down as often. It does break down. Don't get me wrong, people. It does break down, but not as often. Not as often as a GTV 6.
This is our first show on the SubaruONLY podcast. Thanks so much for checking it out, guys. I'm Luke, and my co-host over here, Jimmy. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll come back to you next week at this time, with the next episode of the SubaruONLY podcast. Thank you, everybody.